Hello and welcome to another episode of Music Rabbit Hole. I'm your humble host and music bus driver on today's musical journey. Happy to have you with us. The way this episode is going to work today is I just want to spotlight a little bit of how incredible a month of the month of March was for music. It is not only the best month so far, obviously the year is very young, but still, this could end up being the best month of music for the entire year. Now look, summertime, you tend to have some big time releases. I know we still have some epic albums to come out, but I would definitely be interested to see at the end of this year where March stacks up. And I wanted to do this episode in case you missed some of these fantastic albums that dropped in the month of March. So I want to highlight some of them, give you some of my thoughts on the bad albums, maybe play a little tracks here and there throughout this episode. It's going to be short, but I wanted to at least get into it a little bit because I do feel like, I know sometimes with the month I do a full month album review, such a thing, but there were so many albums that came out in the month of March that this would be an hour and a half long episode if I went through it all. So let's get into it. So first, we'll start with the albums that are on the lower end for the month of March. I mean, namely Macklemore's album Ben that dropped early in the month. That was on the 3rd of March. And as I said I did a 1-minute album review on this, and as I mentioned in there, and just expanding on that, I think to me, I do believe that Macklemore does get a kind of a bad rap. I do think, pun there, I do think that he doesn't deserve all the hate that he gets. I think it's just people find him corny. And so anytime somebody gets labeled with that, like you see that with Chance the Rapper as well. Like Chance the Rapper obviously has put out some fantastic music, but as soon as you get that corny label attached to you, it's really hard to shake. And for Chance, it's like, where has he been? We haven't seen the guy. So with Macklemore, it's kind of a similar deal where he was really popular in that mid-2010s where everyone was starting to really get into him. I remember I saw him live in a small show at the University of Virginia. That was a blast. I mean, he put on a tremendous show. I also got to see him back in, I think, 2018. My wife and I went to see him live at more of like an arena, and that was a blast too. So bottom line is, I think Macklemore puts on a fantastic live show. He seems to be, and you can never really tell with these guys, but he seems to be genuinely a good guy. And on the music side, I guess where he has rubbed people the wrong way is, yeah, you look back at like Same Love, it's a little cringe. You look at some of these other songs that he's done, and yeah, there's a little kind of, they're cringeworthy. You know, like there's some moments there where you're kind of like, all right, this comes across a little cheesy, a little corny, etc. And so I think he's had a hard time shaking that label. And this album that he put out, Ben, it doesn't really help that effort because it also still kind of follows kind of a corny type aspect. So like here's, and hopefully this doesn't get claimed, but here's like a little bit of that chant song that he does. And you can, again, the Macklemore formula tends to be, here's the piano in the background, and then some like inspiring lyricism.
They told me that I'm gone. I told them don't panic. When you've done it this long, and you've seen magic, and you know it won't kill you, even when the whole world doubts it.
So, you know, that the problem that I have is every Macklemore album song seems to sound like that. Like it seems to just be, here's a piano, here's the inspiring lyrics, etc. And for some people, they love that, and that's obviously totally fine. But for me, I want I want my hip hop artists to change up every now and then, like maybe try a different style out. I mean, and especially this year being a year of a lot of artists taking chances. I mean, Lil Yachty is a great example of that. I do think Macklemore kind of falls short in that avenue. This album as a whole, I gave it a 6.5, which might be a little generous. It's 15 tracks. And again, I think there are some nice moments on this album. Heroes, I liked that Heroes song with DJ Premier. Some people don't like it, but for me, I didn't mind it as much. It did kind of show a little different aspect to Macklemore, I thought, on that song. But in general, little rough album there. Couple ones that I know a lot of people really love that Fever Ray album. It's just not for me. It's like a 10-track synth pop, art pop album. Critics gave it a 7.8. I went 5.5. It just, like I said, I just think it wasn't for me. It's for somebody else, and that's okay. I mean, I don't like every single music, every single track, every single artist, etc. A couple other, so that Lana Del Rey album that came out, did you know there's Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, 16-track art pop, chamber pop. You know Lana at this point. This is an album also that some people, I think, are bigger fans of this one than I am. I found the album bloated. I found a lot of it boring. And I know with Lana, kind of part of what you're getting is that moody type music. And that's okay. And I don't mind moody, slow stuff. But when it's an hour and 20 minutes or however long the album was, you expect something to pick up at some point. I did love a couple of the tracks off the album. Like I do like the title track, that Did You Know There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard. I think this is a really well done track, probably one of the best. I also liked Margaret, the song that features Bleachers, and then Taco Truck. See, with this one at least it's slow, but then like the chorus. Let me skip ahead a little bit. And again, if there's any weird edits on this, it means like Lana claimed me and I have to remove it. Okay, well, clearly none of that's. I'm not going to scrub through the whole song, but that song, the title track, I thought does work nicely because there is some higher moments in that. But the critics really love Lana, and rightfully so. I mean, she's super talented. I gave it a 7.2. Critics were closer to an 8. The other album that I was kind of disappointed by was Black's new album, Since I Have a Lover. 19 tracks, so another kind of on the longer side. I was actually higher than the critics. The critics were more like a 6.8. I went 7.3. So it's not that I didn't like the album. In fact, I've got 4 songs here that I really, really liked from the album. But the problem was the 4 tracks I liked were pretty much like the best. I mean, there was like the best tracks on the whole thing. A lot of the album was, again, kind of boring and things like that. It's in the, if you've never heard Black, kind of in the alternative R&B type realm, as you can hear here. Feel like $1,000,000 a song. Feel like we need to be up to song. Not trying to press my lip. So like this song, Since I Have a Lover, you know, it's very groovy. You have a good time through it, you know, but it still hits on the emotional points that he wants. I also liked Talk Back, Chasing Feeling, Rent Free. There are some good tracks on this, and it is in the 7s for me, which is obviously it's a good score. But that was another album that I had higher expectations that it didn't end up meeting. Another big album that came out early in the month. I mean, March was long. I mean, this came out on the 10th, was Miley. So, you know, Miley Cyrus's new record, Endless Summer Vacation, dropped. This is crazy. This was an insane month of music because I didn't even remember Miley's album coming out in this month, and it did. It is unbelievable. So yeah, with Miley, you know, she's obviously a intriguing artist because of her own kind of personal transformations that she's gone through different albums and trying different sounds. Like the last record was pretty good. I mean, it was more she was trying more of like a Joan Jett, like rock type vibe on that last record. And then with this record, she seems to go back into, and I'm definitely not going to play any of her tracks on this album, this video, because I know for sure that those will get taken down. But yeah, with this album, this was something that I appreciate the effort. It's a 13-track pop album. There's some nice moments here. Jaded and You were 2 of my favorite tracks. I think you can enjoy this album, but you want a little bit more. Somebody of Miley's personality and status, where I feel like Miley Cyrus over the years has become a really interesting figure in feminism and self-love and all these different aspects. I think she really promotes a lot of like F it attitude and like, hey, like just be who you want to be and have fun and all that stuff. And I felt like this album didn't necessarily line up with that, because the album just kind of comes across a little cookie cutter at times. It comes across a little safe at times, like definitely like just kind of pop friendly music. And I think what I'd love to see from Miley is a little bit of what we got a taste of on the last record, where like I want to see her taking more chances, and like trying different sounds up, and not necessarily making an album that's right there for the mainstream, like something a little different, because she has the credibility and to back it up. So it's not like people won't still listen. I gave her a 7.4 on the album. Critics were actually liked it a lot. I mean, 8, because it is a good solid pop album, and like I just want a little bit more from her. Another couple albums that stuck out to me. I mean, the new Pornographers new record that came out late in the month. That came out literally the last day of the month. That album, Continue as a Guest, solid album, solid record. I enjoyed it. I have 4 tracks off of that I really like. I like that really, really light song. I like Cat and Mouse with the Light. A lot of light themes on this one. Continue as a Guest, Angel Cover. Those were... Let me play a different one. There's definitely some really fun moments here. And, the new Pornographers have obviously been around quite a while now. And so it's always cool to kind of see a band still doing it, and still doing it at a pretty high level. I mean, this is for a band that's put out a bunch of music over the years, and I haven't really even thought about the new Pornographers recently at all. For them to still put out a really solid, well put together album was impressive. I liked it for sure. So yeah, that album I'd say is about a 7.5. 10-track indie rock album, smooth listening. It's definitely something that you can just get through and enjoy and have a good time. Manchester Orchestra put out an EP this month, The Valley of Vision. So it's not quite an album; it's a 6-track EP. I definitely recommend that as well. I think that's one to check out. It's for fans of Manchester Orchestra. Their emotional sound and lyricism is incredible, and there's a lot of I think, especially going back to some of their old albums, I feel like there's some good connective tissue here between like some of their older stuff, that if you really, really like that, and this new EP. Now, all right, now we're getting into some of the stuff that I really, really enjoyed this month, and this is these next crop is like why I feel like this month might end up being the greatest month in music in the whole year. Navy Blue. So Navy Blue is a rapper who has been mainly underground, if you will, or independent, like over the years. This is his first big label effort. I believe he did it with Def Jam. The album is called Ways of Knowing. But he's been making music for a while, and his name has come up over the years. I've checked out. I think he put out an album last year or the year before, and he's been prolific. But this latest record is a super personal. A lot of family dynamics in the lyrics and in some of the sound clips and things like that. Loss, I believe his grandfather passed away, and that's him and his grandfather on the cover of the album. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And there's just this extra level that I really appreciate in the hip hop spaces. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with an album, and one we're going to talk about later, just being crazy and wacky and just, having a good time. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do like albums that you feel like such a personal excavation, for lack of a better word, where this guy is really bearing his soul on this Ways of Knowing album. And it really comes across. It's 13 tracks. I was right around a 7.5, 7.6, something like that. So starting to trend closer towards the 8s. This is worth your time. If you're a rap fan, I think this is definitely worth your time. Navy Blue, Ways of Knowing. Meet Me at the Altar. They're a pop punk band. I think this is their first full length album. It's 11 tracks. So if you're like a pop punk fan and you like some of that old, Warped Tour type sound, and but more with like kind of a modern feel to it, I recommend Meet Me at the Altar. I think they're fun. It's definitely like one of those albums that's like, hey, you're just gonna have a good time with it. It's gonna have that pop punk sound that you like. Like, here's some of it. Thank you for the money that you spent, even though it was a little bit. Didn't think you'd miss me. I'd move on so quickly. Should have thought of that. So yeah, it's that that pop punk sound that you love if you're really into that genre. this is a good band to check out in them because I do feel like they bring kind of a fresh take to that pop punk sound, and it doesn't feel super dated. Like the problem that I have with some of these, there's a lot of bands that are, and one of them we're going to talk about soon too, is there's a lot of bands that were like really popular in the kind of the mid 2010s and early, late 20aughts. I don't know how you say it, but and that were in that pop punk realm, and they had their height, and now it's just not as popular of a sound anymore, and some of those bands are still trying to recapture that, and some of them are taking a fresh approach to that, and I would say Meet Me at the Altar is taking a fresh approach. The next album I want to talk about is 100 gecs. So this is a wild experience, 100 gecs. Here's a little bit of it. So it's this electronic duo, and this album is pretty insane. So this record has so many different types of sounds in it. It's hyper pop, I guess, if you want to put a genre on it, but it's an experience. 10 tracks. You'll have a good time. There's going to be some times where you're like, what the hell am I listening to? Like, there's some weird songs on this. But overall, I was like, man, this is fun. And the best part of it is, so you go through and you see all the reviews on albums and stuff. And I found this review from this guy who ripped this album to shreds. And it clearly, and that's what I love about music, is that on one hand, you can have somebody who says, like, this is a landmark piece of art, like this is something that is advancing music and advancing a genre, and it's an incredible piece of work. And then on the same album, you could have somebody who says, this is just noise and I hate it. That is fantastic. Like, that is why art is so fun, is because you could have two polar opposite opinions on the same piece of work. And I think that this 100 gecs album is a little polarizing, because there are moments where you're like, what am I listening to? This sounds crazy. Like the track that I just played you right now is the most like commercially accessible track on the album. The rest of the songs are insane. But it's fun. 100 gecs. The album is called 10,000 gecs. The band or artists are called 100 gecs. It all makes sense. All right, so these are my five favorite albums of the month. So Fall Out Boy, So Much for Stardust. This is a little bit of a polarizing album, because I think you have two camps with this, and you know Fall Out Boy, I don't need to explain who they are, but there's a camp of people that feel like the album is a revitalization of their old sound, and that they found some of the old magic, and like it's a fresh take on the piece, similar to what I said about Meet Me at the Altar, where, because obviously Fall Out Boy is in the pop punk realm as well, there's that camp, and then there's the camp that thinks, all right, this sounds dated, it doesn't really, it's not very interesting, you could just, it's a forgettable album, etc. So similar to all this stuff, there's different camps here. I enjoyed it, and I might be a little biased because I do come, I went through the pop punk world, like it hit my age group, like right in that middle school, high school realm. I feel like that was when pop punk and Warped Tour, etc. were at their peak. So I have a little bit of bias because like Fall Out Boy and a lot of these bands were like in my wheelhouse back in the day. I personally felt that this album did a nice job recapturing some of those feelings and recapturing some of that audience, and because with Fall Out Boy, they've pissed a lot of people off in the last few records or so, because like their sound has gone like super poppy, it's super mainstream, etc. This felt a little more heavier, a little more like their roots a little bit. So I had a lot of fun with this. I think you will too. 7-8 for me. The next four are all 8s and above. Spoiler alert. All right, Slowthai, Ugly. This was one of the first. So this came out on the 3rd of March. So this started off the month, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a great month of music. So Slowthai is a UK artist who, rapper at times, alt rock, electronic. He is an innovator, and this album, Ugly, is a great piece of art, honestly. Like, I had so much fun with it. This song is called Never Again that I'm playing. Also would check out Sooner, Ugly, and 25% Club. This song actually is a super heartbreaking song, so I can't even play. I'm definitely not going to play too much of it, because when he gets into the lyrics, I just want you to hear this shift here in a moment.
Stuck to my feet, you're still with me. I never thought I'd see you again.
This little instrumental shift as he gets into his actual, lyricism here.
Seen your parents in the supermarket.
And then he tells this really sad story that actually is really very depressing. But there's some incredible tracks on this, and he covers a lot of different genres, and his growth has been unbelievable. So this was an 8 for me. I highly, highly recommend checking Slowthai Ugly out if you haven't seen it yet or heard it yet. And then now on to my top 3. Number 3 on my list is Yves Tumor, who they put out a tremendous album. And the weird thing about this album, and the album title is super, super long. I don't even want to say it, because it's like, okay, why not? We'll say it. Let's see. The album title is Praise the Lord Who Chews But Which Does Not Consume, or simply Hot Between Worlds. Insane. I don't know what any of that means. It's just insane. And that's a pet peeve of mine. Like, I hate long album titles because I always have to type them out. But yeah, they put out this record that it's funny. I've probably heard the album 10 times now, and I still don't fully understand it yet. Like, it's something that each listen has brought out different emotions in me, or I've recognized different aspects of it. Genre-wise, it's in the alt-rock, art rock, alternative realm. But, man, it is an unbelievable album. There's some punkier rock type aspects, like this song Lovely Sewer is a great track. Heaven Surrounds Us Like a Hood is another favorite of mine. In Spite of War is another favorite of mine. But yeah, they put out truly an unbelievable album. I went 8.2 on this. I think you want to spend your time with it. You want to take your time with it. You want to just sit in it and enjoy it. And give it maybe a few listens, and I feel like you'll grow to appreciate it as much as I did. All right, top 2 here. boygenius, of course, the trio, Julian Baker, Lucy Dacus, and our girl, Phoebe Bridgers. Well, not our girl. You may like her, you may not. I don't know. I like her music. But this was a highly anticipated record. Obviously, boygenius has been putting out some music over the years, and the EP and things like that, and people have been really, really clamoring for this and really excited for this. And I'll say it lives up to the hype. I mean, it really does. I was worried that it wouldn't, because it is such a highly anticipated album, but some people may end up having it on their top 10 albums of the year at the end of the year. I mean, right now, it's in my top 10, but it's only been 3 months. 8.5 from me. Critics are all the way up close to a 9. They're at 8.9 for this one. But yeah, folk rock. If you don't know boygenius, basically it's this trio of tremendous artists. You've probably heard of at least Phoebe Bridgers, but Lucy Dacus and Julian Baker actually put out some tremendous music as well. Highly recommend checking their individual work out. Honestly, if I were to, I don't want to rank them, but I really like Julian Baker's album that she put out 2021 maybe. It's really, really good. I have it on vinyl. I love it. But yeah, so my point is this album lives up to the hype. It's this trio powerhouse women who their voices just blend together so perfectly, where you cannot imagine. I mean, 3 just tremendous songwriters, singers, etc., working together. It's so cool when you get kind of a super group like this, because there are obviously been duos and trios over the years that just work. I mean, Fugees, Outkast. I mean, there's a lot in the hip hop space, of course, in the rock space as well. I mean, super groups, Traveling Wilburys and stuff like that. Like, it happens, but not as much anymore. I mean, we did get Silk Sonic which was a really kind of a fun duo there with Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. But it just doesn't happen as often. So when you get this group of boygenius of these three ladies who just do an amazing job, it's exciting. It's exciting because they all bring it on this, and they do a tremendous job. The storytelling, the artistry, the music is fantastic. I mean, I have 5 favorite tracks on this. I like $20, True Blue, Not Strong Enough, Satanist, and Anti-Curse. Those are my 5, but I recommend the whole album. It's called The Record, by the way, and 8.5 from me on this. This was fantastic. All right, the last album I'm going to talk about, and then I'll do some like honorable mentions, I guess. I mean, I know, before I get to the last album, why don't I just do some honorable mentions? So I know a lot of people are Luke Combs fans, and so he put out an album this month that I feel like is getting some pretty good buzz. That's great. I'm not a giant country guy, so this was not necessarily something that I particularly was into, but maybe you like it, and that's cool. if you had a good time with it, I'm glad. It just wasn't really my thing. That was definitely one of the bigger albums that. Let me see. Let me look at some of the other albums that came out, and then I'm going to talk about my favorite album of the month. Which was quite an experience. So, all right. Other albums that came out in March, and some of them I just haven't had a chance to listen to yet. The Hold Steady, the 9th full-length album for the indie rock group, The Hold Steady. This is on my to-listen list. Critics seem to like it. I just haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. The Zombies put out an album. This artist, Chloe, put out a record. She's I believe like an R&B artist that this album has features from Chris Brown and Missy Elliott, and people are not loving this album, but again, I think it's worth giving a chance. Depeche Mode put out an album that people really like. I have not really given it a full listen either. There's this Irish experimental folk group called False Lankum that put out an album that is critics absolutely love. I just have not really given it a chance. I haven't really had time to give it a chance yet, because it is like something you really have to sit in and listen to, because it has this like old school Irish folk sound to it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, M83. Oh yeah, M83 put out an album. U2 put out an album. So there's plenty of. Ellie and AJ put out an album. If you're a fan of them, I'm not knocking if you are, but it's just not my thing. My guy Van Morrison put out an album as well. So yeah, March had a lot of music, and most of it really, really solid. But the album that I adore, that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the tracks, 7 of the 14 tracks are on my favorite songs of 2023 so far playlist. I'll put the link in the description. It's Jpegmafia and Danny Brown, Scaring the Hoes. This is experimental hip hop to its finest. Like it is experimental. It is different. Not everyone's gonna like it. I went in not sure if I was gonna like it, because I do like these artists. I mean, Danny Brown obviously is a little bit out there at times, and you either kind of like his style or you don't. Jpegmafia has really, his profile has really risen quite a lot, because he's clearly shown that he can do everything. I mean, he can produce, he can rap, he can make. There's just so many aspects to him that is so intriguing. So this duo, when people saw that these two were teaming up, everyone got very excited, because and to me, I think this album lives up to the hype. It's an 8.7 from me. As I said, it's not for everybody. It's not a crowd pleasing. Like if you're at a party, or you've got some not even a party. If you have some friends over for a dinner, like a nice dinner, and you want to put on some music, I wouldn't put on Scaring the Hoes. That is my number one recommendation. I don't, unless they're big Danny Brown, Jpegmafia fans, of course. But it is not necessarily an aesthetically pleasing record. It is an experience. It is something where it's short. I think it's like 36 minutes or something. You breeze through it, and at the end of it, you're like, what just happened? Because the samples are crazy. The lyrics are hilarious. There's crazy one-liners in there. It's not going to be it's not, for example, Navy Blue. It's not going to be your Navy Blue that I talked about earlier, that record, which is a little more straightforward hip hop. This album is different. It's different, but different is good, and this is really, really good. My favorite tracks: Step a Pig, Scaring the Hose, Perfect. I don't even want to say all these. Orange Juice Jones, Kingdom Hearts, Jack Harlow Combo Meal. So let me give you just an example. If you've never heard any of this, let me just give you a little example.
Uncut with that top side, my brain fried. Don't do drugs, had 2 plugs, 1 just died. I'm up late, no talk show, things pop up, you got flow. Truck with a hoe, had a bankroll. Shop never closed, it ran slow. Ain't no way, God could never did shit for me. Came up off that style.
The production on this is incredible because it's not polished. There's some moments. I was talking to my guy Josh Grant, who's a producer, and we were both saying how like there's some moments in here where you're like, this doesn't sound that great. Like as far as like the quality, but it's still, you still have a good time. I mean, that's the crazy thing. It's like it doesn't matter if it sounds like now that section there sounded fine, but there are moments in the album where it's like maybe not mixed entirely properly, but that kind of roughness adds to the experience and makes it my number one album so far of the year. It passed Young Fathers and is now number one for me. My quick, I'll run through my top 10 here. I'm not going to throw the graphics up or anything, but my quick top 10 right now: Paramore, This Is Why; Slow Tie, Ugly; Joseph, Permanent Damage; Caroline Polachek, Desire, I Want to Turn Into You; Screaming Females, their album Desire. By the way, I'm saying artist and then album, by the way. Screaming Females, Desire Pathway; Yves Tumor, crazy long name for the album. Lil Yachty, Let's Start Here, is still in my top 5. boygenius, Young Fathers, and the Jpegmafia, Danny Brown. So of the top 10 now, we've got 4 entries into the top 10 for me right now. So yeah, March may end up being the best month of music this entire year. I really, really had a good time listening to. So if you look, you're busy, everybody's busy. Like if you haven't had a chance to check out some of these albums, I highly recommend it. As far as April goes, like especially as I'm recording right now here in April, as far as looking at the release calendar, Metallica's got a new album coming out. The Tallest Man on Earth has an album coming out. That's an artist, by the way. If you have never heard of him, you're like, what the hell? The Tallest Man on Earth has an album. The Smashing Pumpkins have an album coming out. Who else? Indigo D'Souza. I cannot wait for that album on the 20th of April. I really, really like her. The National have their next record coming out in April. So April looks pretty solid. Then in May, you've got Ed Sheeran, Jonas Brothers. Who else we got coming up here in May? Dave Matthews Band. There's some still DMB heads out there. Arlo Parks has a new record coming out. I love her. June, you got Ben Folds, you got Jack Johnson, you got Rufus Wainwright, you've got Jason Isbell, and the 400 Unit has a new record coming out. Jess Williamson. So yeah, there's obviously some albums that are coming out later this year that will be great, but I'm telling you, I think I think March will end up, this is my prediction, will be the greatest month of music for the entire year of 2023. That's my prediction. We'll see if that happens. I appreciate you watching, listening, etc. You can hit the subscribe button if you'd like. Hit the like button. Comment below if maybe there's some albums I missed or you disagree with some of my thoughts. That's totally fine. It's all part of the game. I will see you guys another time soon. This has been another episode of The Music Rabbit Hole.